Hello, what is going on? It's been a while, hasn't it? Sorry. Yeah, life got in the way. But I'm back. That's what matters. I'm back. I'm gonna be more consistent, I swear. Fingers crossed. I can't really promise much because life will get in the way at some point. But I am dedicated. Just took way longer than I needed to. But we're back. Yeah, we're back. And baby, we got a lot planned for this season. Got another guest coming at the end, just like last time. But let's get the ball rolling. You know how this works. Today we're going to be having a little talk about mental and physical health having to do with your art. Bet you didn't think I was going to come up with that. Go figure. But, yeah, this is quick little easy segue into our quote. Tears are words the mouth can't say nor the heart can't bear. That's by Joshua Weisenbaker. I think that's a perfect sum up of this episode today. Well, I mean, let's be real. My mental and physical health did get in the way of this. A few times. Some job stuff happened, but you know, that leads to a spiral, but we're better now. We're up. We're so up. As a matter of fact, I even started drawing again. For those listening, you won't be able to see this, so I highly recommend checking out my YouTube channel. Or, here's a little self-plug, trying out art. Yeah, that's me, baby. That's my art Instagram. Go check it out. I got merch on there. Real quick, before we really get into the nitty-gritty, I'm proving to y'all that I can get back in the full swing of things with sketch number 1 and a sketch number 2. Yeah, I'm getting back. I'm getting back in it. Might not be digital. I was working on digital beforehand. Jumping back into traditional because I'm rusty. But you know what? That's also part of the episode because that's comfort material, comfort media. But alright, let's jump right into the nitty-gritty. So, a lot of you are hopefully students or struggling artists or artists in general have experienced burnout or extreme fatigue. I'm here to talk about that. I really want to focus on for this part right now is how your physical health greatly affects your creativity. Because, like, one thing you gotta really, accept is that you're not gonna be consistent if you think you're gonna be perfect all the time. Consistency isn't perfect, neither are you. Your physical health, such as the way how your body's functioning, is definitely going to get in the way of things. An example I can provide is when I was really focused on just making art and fixing my image at the same time, I wasn't really too focused on my image. I was just making art to make art. I didn't have the headspace to think on why I was making art. I just knew I was doing it because I was good at it. And that it's something I enjoyed. That's enough to produce art. However, that's not enough to justify pursuing art. That's how I see that. You can produce art for any reason. Pursuing art is a different story. So, example, I used to be really scrawny and I was ashamed of that. And I would look at myself as a little bit of weird, so I started doing really weird art, like monsterfying kids' cartoons. I made a demon Mike Wazowski, a really Meat Canyon inspired crack Mickey, if that makes any sense. I don't know how to explain it. It was gross. I loved it. Still love doing that. I don't do it as much now. I'm in a happier spot. That'll be later down the episode. But I chose to, after focusing more on my routine outside of art and school and work, where I was exercising more, focusing more on myself and getting my body where I needed it to be, My art style kind of changed because I was at a different place physically, which allowed me to be at a better place mentally. It's been an uphill battle for a while, but here's the thing. Your physical state will affect it. If you're sick, you're not going to be producing art as much as you want to be. That's just facts. It's hard. Getting out of bed when you're sick is hard. Going to work when you're sick is hard. We still do it because we have to. Excuse me. Speaking of sick, I'm a little sick right now. But it's whatever. I'm still producing. I'm making myself. Part of the older episodes, I'm actually doing what I doodle a lot more, and that inspired me to draw a lot more. On top of shout out to the cousin for giving me some alcohol markers that I could utilize. I had one set, and then she gave me another set, and that inspired me to keep going. But going back to the physical state, like if you're like physically hurt and you feel like you can create but it's not coming out the way you want to, that's going to affect your process a lot. I had my pinky smashed and I tried drawing, and it wasn't coming out the way I wanted it to, so I adopted a slightly different technique. Still wasn't what I wanted it to be, but it got me through it. It's just, I know that I could have done better if I was in a better physical state. This section is going to be a little quicker just because it's kind of self-explanatory. If you're aching, you're in pain, you're looking at your image and you're not satisfied, that's more mental than physical, but it's still, that physicality does play a part. It does send you into spirals and it makes it harder to produce. But when you're physically in a better spot, you're healthy, you feel great, and you can acknowledge that your body is where it needs to be, yeah, you're going to be producing a lot more. That's pretty self-explanatory. However, what I do really want to talk about is figuring out whether you're like physically tired of producing the same art or mentally tired, because those are two separate things. There's one thing where you become like a machine and you can produce and produce and produce, but it doesn't feel satisfactory. That's like physically exhausting. Like you don't want to keep making it, but you're doing it because you have to. That is physically tired. If you're producing something you know you'd be satisfied with, but you're disappointed in, that's mental burnout. Or if you can't create at all, that's burnout. That is a mental state of you not being okay with where you're at. And I want to tell you that's A-okay. First of all, we all go through it. We really all go through it. I've been through it many times. I experienced it with this podcast. I experienced it with one of the doodles I showed you. I wasn't completely burnt out, but I was frustrated. I had an idea in my head. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to. Still made it work. It took some convincing, though. It doesn't make sense. Like, how do you convince yourself? Well, it takes a lot of, like, yelling at yourself and being like, you already put on the paper. Stop wasting paper. You have an idea. Go with it. Just make something. And you're like, no. But what if? No. Let's finish it. No. Fine. Settling. You settle on what you did and you make it better. It's all you can do. But like, some key signs of like really figuring out if you're mentally tired with your art is literally just, can you create? First of all, is creating exhausting? If it's exhausting, you're mentally done. Like, you're mentally burnt out. Is creating more like mindless for you? Like, you can still be satisfied, but you're not like thinking about what you're making, like it's just flowing. You might be physically tired of like producing art with intent, and you're just producing. Because intent can mentally drain you as well as physically. Like, I can mindlessly make prints all day. I'm not physically exhausted, but If I did that for like the span of a week, if I just kept pressing the same print over and over again, I know I'd physically be tired of the process because I'd find myself finding shortcuts and stuff like that to speedrun it because I don't want to keep doing this. Like, you're getting annoyed at the process and you're like, I've been doing this over and over and over again. I'm tired. That's not really that's not like a mental block. That's just, you've done it enough times. It gets boring. Your physical state starts getting affected. You're more tired easy. You get drained quicker because of what you're doing. Those are the key signs. Dealing with the physical exhaustion is pretty easy. Give yourself a break. Go do something else. Relax. Take a day or two off. That's a-okay. And then you can come back with a fresh mind, fresh set of hands. Another thing that will give away that you're physically exhausted, your line making, or the way you communicate artistry isn't the same. But it is. That sound a little weird? Yes. Like, if you're usually pulling crisp lines and they're a little wobblier than usual, yeah, you might be physically tired. That's a pretty big sign. If you're not someone who muddies their colors in painting, but all of a sudden your colors are muddied because you're not paying as much attention, you're more on the physically tired aspect. However, to figure out if you're mental, to negate that, you just gotta get a little break, get a fresh pair of eyes, leave the piece alone, come back to it, think on it, use your brain on that one. Just come back and think. Who knows, you might come back and rework it into something better because you gave yourself that time to breathe. You allowed it. It's okay to allow you to stop. And I know it can get in the way of your groove. Trust me. That little monster doodle I did and I showed off, when I would stop, it kind of like kicked me out of the groove. But I kept coming back with a fresh set of eyes and fixing things that, regardless of whether or not I was, sorry. Cut me some because I'm a little sick, guys. God forbid a guy take a nap sometime. Just kidding. I need one though. Anywho, back to what we were talking about. That little piece I showed off, the monster, I kept coming back with fresh eyes, even though I was frustrated because it wasn't what I wanted initially. I'm happy with how it came out. I'm settled on it. I could make it better later. But for that, I just reproduce it and make my alterations. But for mental exhaustion, that's a little bit harder to deal with because it's not just like, what I will say, your physical does affect your mental, but your mental does affect your physical way more. Because the mental into physical is a really strong bleed over. Because your physical shape, it takes like a little bit of time to build up. Your mental can happen at any moment. 1 minute you could be drawing something you're really happy with, and the next minute you're zoned out, nonverbal, or just looking at it like it's an alien. But that's okay. Don't get frustrated with yourself just because you're like stuck and you feel like you're not producing well. That's a big key factor, is like not meeting your own standards. I know I'm guilty of, and many artists are guilty of, like being mad at themselves for having this set creative vision that isn't executed properly in their brain. That is probably my biggest mental block, is the moment it's not coming out the way I want it to, I'm done. I quit easy. And that takes me out of the game for like days, weeks, months on end, because I just lose the will. Because it's like, it usually happens after a hot streak of like, I'm so happy with this. Dang, look at the progress I'm making. Look at how consistently like well made these pieces are, and then one bad piece comes along and I'm like, I'm done. I'm retired again till it comes back. But that's okay. I've gotten better at dealing with it. I want to share my tips on that. to like help identify the mental stuff, you definitely gotta have an idea of like self-reflection and being able to dig deep in yourself. Like if you have a mental illness such as depression, anxiety, anything like that, you do have to be a little bit more introspective and understanding how that's going to play a part in your art. I do have my gripes with certain emotions in art, like the romanticization of, wow, that was a big word, romanticization of depressive emotions in art. I think it's played out. As much as art is supposed to reflect who we are as people, I think you can only produce so much from that state versus when you're like at a more neutral mindset and closer towards happy or just enjoying life. Like, I think the ability to produce when you're doing that is way more significant because it becomes joyful. It becomes fun again. It's not just expression at that point. It means you're actually enjoying the process. Sometimes when people create depressive pieces, they're doing it as an outlet, which is healthy to an extent. If you can only produce when you're sad, then that's a problem. Because what are you going to do when you're happy? You're going to be burned out. You're not producing sad pieces. You're going to be stuck. And then that'll send you into a depressive spiral. Then you can produce art that you think is okay, but you just sacrificed your happiness to meet a standard you set for yourself because you didn't know what to do. I don't think that's okay. That's a really big mental block to understand. You have to get over that kind of stuff. It's really minute things like changing the scenery helps a lot. Changing what subject you're drawing. I know for a fact that my subject matter is usually like grim. I like drawing a lot of death and stuff like that, but I also like drawing life. I love drawing flora and fauna. Especially flora. I love flowers. I know when I need a change of scenery, I go out in nature and I just sit there and I find something to draw. It breaks me out of my like morbid cycle. That's the best way I can put that, sadly. But you know, you just gotta play with it because everybody is different. But you do gotta find small things like doodles. Doodling is a great practice to have because no matter what state you're in, you can always produce a doodle and then that's your thumbnail sketch. It gets you somewhere. If you really like your doodle, take it further. Or just document it. I save all my doodles at work when I'm bored. Boredom is the greatest solution to creative blockage ever. Let yourself get bored. That's a great way to cure whatever you're doing. Like, let go of your phone for 5 freaking seconds. And like, preferably more. That's a joke, obviously. But like, drop it. Stop letting yourself be like mindlessly fulfilled and just get bored. Especially with a creative mind like yours, getting bored is wonderful. It does wonders for the mind. I've drawn so much at work because I get actually bored. I'm not allowed to be on my phone as much. I can only listen to music and maybe text every now and then. But I'll draw a lot. And it's sharpened me again. I appreciate that aspect of the boredom. Just let yourself get bored. That is the biggest cure to the mental block. And that leads me into my next thing. Sketching is like a routine. If you can doodle, at least make something, it could be silly, it could be hyper realistic, but if you can draw something at least bare minimum 3 times a week, like, it doesn't have to be a set number of doodles, it can be as many as you want. But at least one thing 3 days out the week. Doesn't have to be in order, it can be random. As long as you're drawing something, keep those juices going. It helps you build up your routine. Routine is important for physical and mental health because as nice as it is to freelance everything, let's be real. How many of you don't have a routine? How many of you don't adopt new routines? Whether they're healthy or not is a question. That's different. But routines like going to the gym, that improves your mental and physical health completely. I'm a strong advocate for going to the gym to fix your body image issues. Let's say you have emotional problems. What better place to take it out than to put yourself through something that'll help distract yourself in a healthy way. I know I have moments where I'm really depressed, and they're a lot less now that I'm regulating my exercise a lot more. I'm way more consistent in it. My mood doesn't fluctuate as quickly. It still fluctuates, I can't help that, but it doesn't fluctuate as quickly because I have this routine to help me balance out. Going on walks, that's a great routine. The doodles, I keep bringing this up. I think that's very important. That is a crucial step of the routine. Anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're doing. Especially, this goes for traditional media artists like music. Writing a song or parts of a song once a day, that helps dramatically. Making an instrumental or parts of an instrumental at least once a day, or fiddling around in the studio, and then you might make something you like. Same thing goes with creating art, like the physical art. Mess around with your process and create a routine out of it. Upset your regularity in a healthy way. That sounds really dumb, I know. But I just contradicted everything I said with that statement. I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to express is your routine should be healthy, but allow enough flexibility to where if you get stuck in your routine, you can open it up. You don't need a strict routine. I think a strict routine is way too hard. I'm very flexible with my gym routine and my drawing routine. Sometimes I go almost a full week without drawing, but then I make 12 doodles in the span of 2 days. It balances out. However, I think I could be more consistent if I actually sat down and drew more. Big pieces. That's next up on my routine change. I'm upsetting my normality by going bigger. I'm too used to small format. Well, now I'm used to smaller formats because of sticky notes. Those sketchbook entries are going to get bigger in due time. I need to get comfy with this medium. That's another thing. Find a comfort that you can regularly incorporate. My comfort medium is ballpoint pen. I love ballpoint pen. I can regularly come back to it and still be consistent. So I upset my routine by going with alcohol markers. And I'm glad I did, because my alcohol markers have improved a lot. My usage of them. But let's just be real. I want to be really real with you guys. What you're going through is perfectly normal. Physical and mental burnout are such a real thing in this world. And I know it's hard to accept because it's not, at least the mental aspect, because it's not on the outside. It's hard. One big thing to remember though is especially when you're going through a depressive state for your mental health, is it's okay to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, as long as you recognize it's not permanent. Everything, I know the the illness is permanent, but those moments where you're depressed might be part of that, but they're temporary because you get to feel other emotions later. Remember the feeling of the other emotions, and it might help you counteract your states better. You'll be more prepared for your next low. I always have to prepare for my lows. I usually feel I've come up with a cycle where I can usually feel them around this time of year. I'm pretty low for the next 4 months, maybe 6. That's okay. It's normal. I've figured out how to keep my highs higher than my lows. So I like plateau. I'm like more neutral, closer to down, but I can bring myself up when I really need to. It gets physically exhausting, like my body's heavy and stuff like that, and then I don't even want to pick up a pencil. There's an example of physical being tied to mental. But like, just remember, don't be so hard on yourself, because the harder you are on yourself, the harder it is to produce. Be hard enough to where you know you can put effort in and work on yourself and improving yourself in whatever aspect you need. Because the moment you figure out what you want to work on and how you're going to do it, those are the two hardest questions. Doing it is easy. Committing to the bit, easy. Figuring out why you want to do it, that's hard. Figuring out how you're going to go about it, that's harder. But as long as you can stay focused and hone yourself, your craft will improve. And then you'll learn to accept that you're normal. Like, normal nowadays isn't so normal to most people, but that's pretty normal. Like, you're allowed to feel whatever you feel, even if it's heavy. You're allowed to let your body collapse if you need it to, because you need rest. Rest is an ideal thing you need to build up to be able to produce and have a good state of mind. Always make sure you sleep enough. Take care of yourself. Remember, you are human at the end of the day. You're not a printing press. You're not a printer. You're not an AI that steals composite art. You're an artist. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, and it's gonna be hard. But with time comes experience, and with experience comes solutions. I'm offering some of my experience to you guys, and I'm hoping that it resonates with you, especially this episode. I know it's been kind of generic and preachy, but at the end of the day, I'm human too, buddy. I'm just trying to help out where I can. Just remember, always keep yourself motivated. By keeping yourself motivated with any of these tips, you should be able to be okay. Whatever you do, mental and physical burnout will always be normal. Remember that, and don't let yourself get stuck in a rut just because you feel like it's not normal where you're at. You're doing just fine, and it's only going to be better.